Hello, and welcome back to Stories from Ashley's Childhood. I'm back in the garage because despite being 90-some degrees outside, it's not terribly hot in here today. So hopefully we're that much closer to getting this channel launched and some videos uploaded. So today I have a special treat for those that end up watching this. Today I'm going to tell you guys about the first time my family took a vacation to Panama City Beach. So this was after my parents' divorce, so it was a family vacation with just my father, my two sisters, and myself. So we leave at the crack of dawn, like the ass crack of dawn, and we pile into this typical minivan. It was a Chrysler Town & Country. It had the button doors that would... You push the button and and that was the shit. That was the coolest thing we'd ever seen. So I, being the eldest sibling, got to ride up front, which meant I got the comfiest seat to sleep in on the way to Florida. Now the reason I got to ride up front was because I was supposed to be practicing for driving, because at this point in time I was 16. And so on the lighter stretches of the interstate, when there wasn't as much traffic, I was trading off driving with my dad. But with it being typical spring break season, there weren't very many of those stretches, and I couldn't hold the attention if I wasn't driving. So I dozed in and out of sleep all the way down to Florida. I woke up at one point, and my dad is very angrily staring out the window, which isn't out of the ordinary for Dad. I was fortunate enough to inherit my road rage from my father, so I wasn't too surprised about the fact that he was just mean mugging out the window, until I noticed that he had headphones in and they weren't plugged into anything anymore. And so I asked what was wrong, and he just gestured to the cup holder. In the cup holder was a cup of coffee with his brand new iPod in it. He was listening to his iPod so that the radio wouldn't wake any of us up. And it was one of the early iPods, so like if you shook it, it would change the song. Well, he shook it a little too hard and launched it into his coffee. So the headphones came unplugged during this incident, and he just mean mugged out the window. His iPod was day one of vacation. Dad kills his iPod. So we survive this trip, and we get going. We finally get to the beach, and we go to dinner, and all is well. Well, we come back from dinner to our little hotel that was parked right next door. The parking lot was right next door to Sharky's, I think was the name of it. It was some seafood place that had a big shark. My brain says Sharky's. We'll see how great the memory is. The parking lot is full. We see people getting out of their cars and walking into Sharky's, despite the sign outside of the Sharky's parking lot that says additional parking a quarter of a mile down the road. So my father, being the brilliant problem solver that he is, speaks to a manager and says, there's nowhere to park. These cars need to be towed. Well, the manager makes the grave mistake of telling my father there's additional parking a quarter mile down the road, which sends Dad into a bit of a rage, because the parking down the road is not for the hotel. It's for the people eating at the restaurant next to the hotel. So some choice words are exchanged between these two grown men, and my father marches proudly back to his silver minivan, circles the lot one more time, and blocks the entrance. Now it's a pretty toasty day, so even with the AC on, the car's pretty hot. So we have windows down, AC on, cars running. Dad has his door open, and he's standing on the running board of the door in his swimming trunks and wife beater, smoking a cigarette. And the manager comes out and tells him that he has to move his car. he refuses and states that he will move his car when somebody from the restaurant leaves and a space in the hotel parking lot is available. And the manager goes back inside. And luckily, before any further action can be taken, somebody from the restaurant comes to their car and leaves, and we park in the spot. It's not their spot. They were at the restaurant, not the hotel. So we park, and we get into the hotel, and we go to bed. And the next day, we decided we were going to rent a pontoon boat. It'll be great family fun. So first, we go to Walmart. We buy all sorts of goodies. We buy floaties. We buy a snorkel mask. I think we bought 2 or 3 snorkel masks, actually. And the flippers. Balling out. We have everything. So we get on this pontoon boat, and we hear that the jet skis, the guys on the jet skis, they're seeing dolphins. We want to see dolphins too. So we take the boat out where the jet skis are going. I'm going to give you a side note. This was right after the last week of school. I wasn't great at packing my lunch. Some things never change. My wife packs my lunch now because I won't do it. I won't eat. The last week of high school, I was just taking peanut butter and crackers, and if I got hungry, I'd smear some peanut butter on a cracker and eat it. So I had a butter knife in my purse. And I decided to clank it on the side of this pontoon boat, which the dolphins loved. Like, that was lit. That was life. That was all they cared about. So the dolphins show up and they start circling around. Well, evidently they left all of the jet ski people, which cost more than the pontoon boat. So then the jet ski man comes and yells at us and tells us we're not allowed to have the pontoon boat out there and we have to go back within the shipping channel. So we apologize and turn the boat around and come back. Well, there's a nice little sandy beach area. Well, that'll be the perfect spot to snorkel. So we drop anchor and we're out and we're in our floaties, chilling in our little inflatable loungers. All of a sudden, I don't know how many of you have been to Florida or live in Florida. That weather is bipolar. And that's coming from the Midwest where the weather changes every 27 minutes. We went from the sunniest, most beautiful day to a freaking, I don't even know, the craziest storm out of nowhere. Starts blowing in. And a huge gust of wind takes our pontoon boat out into the middle of the shipping channel as a barge is coming towards it. So we all start swimming like madmen. We all have floaties. You can't swim very well with floaties. I was a pretty strong swimmer. All of us were capable of swimming. Let me say that. My father and I were the strongest swimmers. My youngest sister pretty much was clinging to the floaty for dear life. And my middle sister had a floaty that you could kind of hook your arm through and kind of swim through the opening in the floaty. So it wasn't as inhibiting as the other floaties. So I'm on my floaty trying to push my younger sister in her floaty towards the boat. My father is just swimming with no floaty towards the boat, and my youngest sister somehow beats him to the boat. And she sees the rest of us struggling. And she meant well. God love her, she meant well. She threw her floaty. Keep in mind, this is at most a $15 floaty. It just catches the wind and flies through the air. And rather than continue for the boat, gaining control of the boat, and then rescuing us and the floaty that had escaped, my father turns and swims after this $15 floaty. Don't get me wrong, we wouldn't have left it in the ocean. But if it got damaged, it wasn't really the end of the world. There was no need to rescue this floaty. So he gets the floaty, and he swims back to the boat. And he gets on the boat, and is able to navigate it out of the way, just in time for the man on the barge to start screaming at him. My dad's in full adrenaline mode, and is kind of panicking, because 2 of his daughters are still in the ocean as a storm is approaching and a barge is moving towards us. So he starts yelling at the guy back, "Look, it's not our fault. The storm drug it out into the channel." And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. So by this point, my younger sister and I reach the boat, and she gets up into it. And as I'm getting in, I busted my shin. And blood starts coming out. And instantly I was like, oh my God, sharks are coming. Sharks are coming to get us. We're all going to die. We didn't die. We almost died. Not from sharks, just from the fact that we were swimming after a boat that was rapidly being pulled away from us. I really thought I was going to drown that day. I really did. It was a scary time. So, after this family vacation, which, looking back, was one of my favorite family vacation memories. The road trip was great, other than Dad's iPod. By the way, Dad never actually got rid of that iPod, and I would bet money that somewhere in their house that iPod is still in a drawer because he was convinced he could fix it. I would bet money he still has it somewhere. So we get back home, and life returns to normal, except for one thing. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But whoever made up that phrase never met a Neil that had been scorned. Every day, for 3 months, my father left a negative review on the website of that motel that wouldn't let us park, or wouldn't necessarily control the parking. Every day for 6 months. That is some petty ass shit. That is my role model. That's what I live by to this day. So there you have it. If you're going to go to Florida, don't shake your iPod shuffle too hard. Try to pick somewhere that has solid parking options. And if you're crossed when it comes to the parking, sometimes you got to be karma. And if you're going to rent a pontoon boat, for the love of God, make sure the anchor is sufficient to stop it in case a storm drags the pontoon boat away from you. That's all I got for today. Stay classy, y'all.